I really think that all problems in medicine currently, if you looked at the root causes, almost all of them stem from the fact that we're using health insurance improperly. The term is a misnomer. It's not really insurance. It's redistribution. Health insurance should be some sort of catastrophic care, but routine things should be paid for like you pay for anything else.
Paging Dr. Cook. Paging Dr. Cook. Dr. Cook, you're wanted in the OR. Dr. Cook, you're wanted in the OR.
Welcome to the Prescription for Success podcast with your host, Dr. Randy Cook.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Prescription for Success. I'm Dr. Randy Cook, your host for the podcast, which is a production of MD Coaches, providing leadership and executive coaching for physicians by physicians to overcome burnout, transition your career, develop as a leader, or whatever your goal might be. Visit MD Coaches on the web at mymdcoaches.com because you're not in this alone. My guest today has had a career that really stretches the boundaries of what we generally consider surgical practice and especially trauma care. So, let's hear my conversation with Dr. Ronen Elefant. I am really looking forward to my conversation today with Dr. Ronen Elefant, coming to us from somewhere up. Is it Connecticut, Ronen?
Today it's Pennsylvania, but I
you get around a lot, don't you?
I travel a lot. I'm sure we'll get to it, but yeah, today I'm in Pennsylvania.
We're going to get into that. Aspect of your life, but it's Dr. Ronen Elefant, whose career I think is difficult to capsulize in a word or two. You certainly are a thoroughly trained surgeon in many subspecialties, but lots of other add-ons to that, and we'll get into that as we go along. But as is always the case, I like to begin at the beginning, and it's always fascinating to me when I interview someone who was not born in this country. So tell us a little bit about your origins.
Yeah, so that's a good place to start. So I'm actually an immigrant to this country, and I would say that I'm very thankful. I definitely am living the American dream. I think that my parents came here for themselves, but also for their kids to have the opportunities that I have. That unfortunately, as much as I love the country I was born in, I don't think I would have the same opportunities. So I was born in Israel, and I lived there till I was 9 years old. I don't have much recollection of the early years, but I have fond memories of Israel. The truth is, when I go to Israel nowadays, I'd like to think myself as Israeli, but I've become so Americanized that I don't feel like I fit in over there, unfortunately. But I love the culture. I love the food. I still have a lot of family there. My sister moved back because she was a few years older than me and always wanted to continue living there. My mom moved back there some time ago. So my immediate family actually lives in Israel, and we visit often. And it's a beautiful country. I moved to the United States when I was 9 years old. I actually did not speak a word of English. I had to learn it the hard way, like literally in school with kids. And the first grade I was here was fourth grade. And so had a lot of good friends from elementary school who took me in and helped me out. They spoke a little Hebrew. I started picking up the language fairly quickly. And it was a great experience, I would say.
I'm really fascinated by the many people I've known, and hundreds, maybe thousands, who have been picked up from another culture, another part of the globe and drop down into a territory where they have no familiarity, and yet they survive. And you're kind of making it sound easy. I mean, were you ever at any point having tremendous anxiety over what had just happened to you, or did you just roll with the flow, or what was it like when you were 9 years old?
Yeah. So you know what? It's funny you mentioned that, I'm making it sound easy, because I think I'm going to talk about that at the end with my prescription for success. It definitely wasn't easy, but I was really looking forward to the change, the new life. We'll get into it in my love of airplanes, but that was my first memory of being on an airplane, is like leaving Israel and to Florida or New York. I don't even remember like our initial stop, but I do remember like exactly where I was sitting on that airplane, because I loved airplanes. But I think it was harder for my sister. So I was 9 years old. My sister was 14. So she was in her formative years. She was with a group of friends that she didn't want to leave in Israel. And as you can imagine, being a teenager, like picking up and moving, this is the reason why she wanted to move back as soon as she could.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it was harder for her. For me, and you'll learn over the course of the podcast that my personality is such that like I just love adventure. It's why I do what I do now, and I love a change of scenery. I look at every new endeavor like that as potentially opening a lot of doors. And so for me, it was like, okay, how is this going to look? And we're going to make the best of it. And it was always like a positive thing for me. And you'll learn over the course of the podcast that that's kind of like how I live my life now too.
Yeah, I'm not at all surprised to hear you say that. Having looked over your bio, it's very interesting. And indeed, you do seem to go where the adventure is.
Yeah.
And let's talk about really starting the process. When you began your college career at Yeshiva University of New York, did you have medicine in mind at that point, or did that decision come later?
Not at all. Yeah, so not at all. In fact, I was going towards a very analytical field like mathematics and physics and engineering. I did not want to go into medicine at all. In fact, I think my mom a couple times suggested that I consider it, and I was like, absolutely not. Mm-hmm. And then I decided to do a master's in biomedical engineering after college. It was then that I actually took my first biology course.
Really?
And and at the same time, anatomy with the medical students. This was I went to Columbia for the master's. And so I sat at the Columbia Medical School anatomy class, and it was so hard because I had no knowledge of anything, right? So imagine, basically a college-age kid who doesn't know anything about biology taking anatomy with medical students. And it was
really
so hard. I was on the verge of failing. I remember I had to go to the professor's office, begging to give me a passing score because I would not get my master's. So,
wow.
And it's funny because now, obviously, as a surgeon, like anatomy is my favorite subject.
Indeed.
But back then, like I read the book, and I was like, I have no idea what these words mean. But it was actually at the same time that I decided to go to medical school, even though it was very hard. Again, like going back to, I just love a challenge. I still wanted to be a biomedical engineer, but I figured like to be a great biomedical engineer, like how much better would it be if I studied medicine and understood it on the same level that a doctor does? And, again, my parents, with their background, were very supportive of education. So the reason why my CV looks the way it does, like in a way it looks circuitous to get to medicine, but to me, it made sense is because they were very supportive of whatever it is that I wanted to study. So when I said, okay, I want to study math and physics. Okay, go study that. Well, now it's biomedical engineering. Okay. And then medical school, no problem. They were very supportive. They helped me pay for school. Yeah, so I decided to go to medical school, but very quickly realized that for what I thought at the time would be upward mobility, being a doctor would be better than being a biomedical engineer.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm very happy with that decision because for multiple reasons. I think and you know what, like I don't regret at all like having an engineering degree. In fact, I think it makes me a doctor that thinks very differently than others.
Most
And
definitely.
over the years, I've met other surgeons, whether they were my attendings when I was a student or resident, who also had engineering degrees, and I always gravitated towards them because the way they saw the human body, or the way they saw what surgery is about, was just completely different. And I view it as an engineering problem, and that's why I chose surgery also. So as soon as I decided to go to medical school, initially for engineering, and then quickly, just shifting to, okay, I'm going to be a doctor, I knew from day one I wanted to be a surgeon. And in fact, that's how I treated my rotations, unfortunately. You know how they say, when you go through your rotations, like just give it your all. Like even if you're doing psychiatry, like pretend like you want to go into psychiatry to get the most out of it. Like I had no desire to do anything else but be a surgeon. And in a way I missed out on some of those things, but in a way, like I was very goal oriented and focused on the ultimate path that I was going to be on. And I was determined to get there.
We'll get back to our interview in just a moment, but right now I have a message for you from our friends at PracticeLink. If you're a physician considering your next career move, whether you're finishing training, relocating, or just ready for something new, make PracticeLink your first stop. PracticeLink is the leading physician job board with tens of thousands of opportunities across every specialty and in every corner of the country. You can search by specialty, location, employer type, and more, so finding the right fit is faster and easier. But PracticeLink offers more than just job listings. Our free resource center is designed specifically for physicians, and it includes expert tips on CV writing, contract negotiation, interview prep, and managing your job search with confidence. Best of all, everything is completely free for physicians. So visit PracticeLink.com today to explore jobs, connect with employers, and access career resources made just for you. I'd like to share a message from Navigate. After spending years in the financial sector, Navigate has met lots of clients with all kinds of student loan issues. They were confused, they were overwhelmed by the doublespeak and the overly complex forms, and especially the deliberately misleading statements from loan servicer representatives. Navigate recognized the chaos in the student loan industry and immediately brought clarity and real solutions. If you'd like to flip the script on student debt, visit www.flipthescript.loan/MD-coaches to schedule a call with Navigate. They'll tailor a plan specifically for your unique situation and work with you until the loan is paid off. What do you have to lose besides the stress of student loan debt? Well, as a surgeon myself, that mindset certainly makes sense to me. Was it early on during your medical school experience that you made that decision, or was it something that came near the end because of some particular event? How did you finally decide to pull the trigger?
Yeah, I think it was even in my first year, right? So like we were still in the classroom, not in the clinical phase of medical school, where I just knew I wanted to do surgery.
Yeah,
it just spoke to me. I loved the surgeons' personalities. I loved the idea of like being able to heal people with my hands, being able to heal people, like the immediacy of things. Like I never grew up in a house where like, if you didn't feel well, you took a Tylenol and this and that. Like medications were never like in my vocabulary. All power to the people who do that. But to me, I don't find it satisfying to have somebody, if I was a general practitioner and have somebody come to my office, I measure their blood pressure and then I give them something and I check it 3 months later to see if it worked. Like, I need to see results right away. And it's very satisfying to me as a surgeon to have somebody come in through the ED with a problem. And then, the next day they walk out feeling 100% better. Right.
There
like
is just nothing like immediate gratification, right?
Yeah. And, and it's like, okay, I made a difference in this person's life. Right. Like, I don't think that I would ever feel satisfied with like, okay, I dispensed the medication,
Right.
Like, that's a little different for me. So
when you got into your surgical training, you felt right at home, it sounds like.
Yes, I'll tell you, I've been doing this for a long time. If you count residency, and even if you don't count residency, I guess, there's not been one day where I did not want to go into work, right? And
isn't that a great feeling?
Residency even. Yeah. I love it. I joke around, but like there were times that I said, like, I can't believe they pay me to do this. Like I would do it for free,
Exactly my experience. Yeah.
Yeah. I never, like on a Sunday night, if I have to go into work on a Monday, I never feel bad about it. Like I'm always like, okay, what's the day going to look like? What's going to come in through the doors? It's always an adventure. It's always satisfying. I always have to think outside the box. It's challenging. I learn new things. So not one day since I started since the first day of residency have I ever felt like I don't want to go into the hospital.
That's a great feeling.
Yeah.
And interestingly, even after you finished your surgical residency, you clearly wanted to add something more. You didn't really like the idea of doing an operation and getting out of the way. You really wanted to get into the business of taking care of sick people, and so you went on and did some more training in surgical critical care. Any thoughts on how that came about?
Yeah, it was also kind of a natural progression. Like when I viewed myself as a surgeon, even as a trainee, I wanted to be what I would call an old school surgeon, somebody who can kind of take care of it all. Right. Obviously, everybody super specializes now, and I can't say I'm a good vascular surgeon, but as a trauma surgeon, I have to know enough about vascular trauma to be able to handle it until a specialist comes in. And same thing with like CT surgery. And so the progression towards surgical critical care, which is like the stamp of approval for trauma, and also the ability to take care of the sickest patients in the hospital, sort of to be what in my mind was like the last person that anybody would call, right? Like there's nobody else to call if I say I can't do it. It was very satisfying to me. And again, like just was the mental image for me was that like, that is what an old school surgeon was. They kind of did it all. There were no specialties, 100 years ago. It was just a surgeon. And to me, that embodiment was what today is a trauma and acute care surgeon.
I understand. I came to the end of my career at about the time that super subspecialization was going on all around me, and I'm glad I made it to the finish line before that took all the fun things away. And I get exactly what you're talking about. And going further, we talked about, or you talked about the satisfaction of being in the operating room and having your hands on the patient and experiencing the immediate feedback. That alone was not enough. You couldn't actually walk away from that. And I gather that's what led to your interest in shock trauma, which you went to Maryland, I guess, to get certified. And then what was that experience like?
So my wife would say it was the worst year of her life.
I bet it was.
For me, I would say it was the best year of my life. I had a great time. It was the best exposure you could get to trauma. There is no better place than shock trauma, and I'm glad I chose it, or they chose me. I guess it was a match, but it was definitely my top choice. And There were multiple reasons why I loved it. Obviously, like the substrate, like, just the exposure to the amount of trauma down there and the kind of trauma and the camaraderie. For those who don't know, it's a freestanding trauma hospital. You don't walk into that hospital for like a sore throat. In fact, there's no door to walk into. You either come in by ambulance from the scene or by helicopter at the roof. It's only trauma patients. And basically every floor, I think there were 5 floors, if I recall, every floor is an ICU. There's no regular beds, and it's just different types of ICUs. And the other thing that was great about it, other than, like I said, the substrate of like the material that I saw, and the kinds of patients that I saw and the things I had to deal with, is that it was one of the largest, if not the largest, fellowship. So I think we were a group of 12. And obviously,
wow, that's quite a crowd.
Yeah, exactly. Most of these fellowships are like 1 or 2 people, and that could be very lonely when you're taking call at night alone. And when you have such like a deep experience, obviously, as you can imagine, taking care of trauma patients who are, at their worst, can get to you mentally. And I think when you do that with a group of people who are going through the same emotions, is very helpful. And we all as a group have stayed in touch. We have like a texting group, and we'll ask each other clinical questions or see who's going to the national conferences or just put up like jokes from that time. So it was also a very social experience, whereas other fellowships, I think, are not a social experience.
Mm-hmm. I hadn't really thought about that, but the peer support must have been really gratifying.
Absolutely. I made some fantastic friends. And again, like these were top-notch doctors. So in our fellowship, it was mostly geared towards surgeons who wanted to be trauma surgeons. But because it's surgical critical care, it was also open to ER physicians who wanted to treat critical care in emergency. And there's certainly a push for that. I think there's at many of the big centers, there's an ICU in the ED, and it's run by people who trained like in a fellowship like mine. And I would say that those ED physicians and fellows were some of the best physicians I've ever met.
I can imagine.
Really, really skilled. Obviously, they weren't surgeons, but they knew enough. And I have so much respect for them. And they've all gone really far in their careers because they were top-notch people.
Yeah, I bet they were.
Hi, I'm Rhonda Crow, founder and CEO for MD Coaches. Here on RX for Success, we interview a lot of great medical professionals on how they grew their careers, how they overcame challenges, and how they handle day-to-day work. I really hope you're getting a lot of great information. But if you're looking for an answer to a specific problem, management or administration challenge, or if you're feeling just a bit burnt out, like maybe you chose the wrong career, well, then there's a faster way to get the help you need. No, it's not counseling, it's coaching. RX for Success is produced by MD Coaches, a team of physicians who have been where you are. I know you're used to going it alone, but you don't have to. Get the support you need today. Visit us at mymdcoaches.com to schedule your complimentary consultation. Again, that's mymdcoaches.com, because you're not in this alone.
We'll get back to our conversation in just a moment, but first, I want to mention a sponsor who has been with us almost since our beginning. Physician Outlook is a splendid publication created for physicians by physicians. Originally a print and online magazine, it's now a dynamic digital-only platform using storytelling, humor, and community building to help physicians and surgeons reconnect with the art of medicine. Physician Outlook celebrates the entire healthcare team, including nurses, nurse practitioners, and PAs who value physician-led care. As artificial intelligence and corporate overreach threatens the human connection, Physician Outlook remains committed to the sacred physician-patient relationship. Beyond storytelling, Physician Outlook takes action on causes that matter. So join the movement. Connect, laugh, be inspired. Visit physicianoutlook.com today. And now let's get back to our interview.
So my earliest memories are of me at 4 years old playing with like Fisher Price airplanes and just being fascinated by how these massive machines could, fly through the air. And it's funny because even now, being a fairly accomplished pilot, I know the engineering and I know how they fly. I could sit by an airport and still be fascinated by how these big iron machines take off.
I know the feeling.
In awe.
And
Yeah.
for the benefit of our audience, I want them to understand that you're not flying around in single engine Piper aircraft. You're actually turbine certified, and
Correct.
Really flying complex aircraft. But go ahead.
Yeah. So about a year ago, I actually transitioned into jets. And I guess I'll get to that. But yeah, so I have my license type is called the airline transport pilot, which is what the commercial airline pilots have. Like if I wanted to tomorrow join an airline, I have enough hours and the experience to basically be sitting in the right seat immediately. Not going to do that. That's not my goal. But yeah, so like, again, I'm still fascinated by it, even though I do it all the time. So going along with the way my parents were very supportive, who I can't thank them enough, and especially my dad, who, whatever dream I had was his dream as well. So when I was 13, I asked to take flying lessons. I took my first flying lesson when I was 13. I think I took 2 or 3 lessons, and I was too short. I couldn't even reach the rudder pedals. And so we decided that we have to wait till I'm a little taller.
Yeah, 13's pretty early to be handling a turbine aircraft. Yeah.
Yeah. So when I was 19, I remember actually I was in DC interning for a senator, and we went to the Air and Space Museum, and there was like a mock-up Cessna 172, and I sat in there. And I remember calling my dad. I did have a cell phone, believe it or not, at that time. It was so long ago, but I did have a cell phone. I remember while sitting in the Cessna calling my dad and saying, "Hey, Dad, when I come home for the other half of the summer, I want to get my pilot's license." And he, again, was very supportive. And so that's what I did the second half of that summer. That was back in 1999. I got my pilot's license and then just kind of flew around for fun. Not very confident in my flying, but every time you fly, you get a little more confident. Mm-hmm. And it was in medical school actually that I got all my ratings, other than the airline transport pilot. There was a friend of mine was dating a flight instructor, and he and I became friends. And he wanted to build hours as a flight instructor, and he offered me a great opportunity, which was like, if you rent the plane, I won't charge you, and we'll go through all the ratings. And so I got my instrument.
What a deal!
Commercial. Yeah. So, and I knew that, like, once I finished medical school, I would probably never be able to have the time required to put into all that. And I had a very hard time in medical school sitting through classes because, let's say it was like an hour lecture. I felt like no matter what, like, it was hard to pay attention. And then if you did pay attention, you still needed to read like 5 hours worth of material from the textbook for every hour you spent in class. And so what I ended up doing was, like, I skipped out on a lot of my second year of med school, like classroom stuff, to go fly at the local airport. And I got all my ratings, my instrument, commercial, multi-engine. I remember I took the test with the FAA examiner on the last day before third year started, because that was going to be the last day that I would fly for a while. And in terms of like what I needed to do for med school, it's like at the end of the day, I came home and I just went to the library for like 6 hours and I read the textbook,
Holy cow.
So that's kind of how I went through the second year of med school and got my licenses. And then I didn't fly for a while because, residency can be brutal and fellowship was brutal. I think I maybe wrecked 30 hours over the course of the 6 years. I remember when I finished fellowship, I had, I think, 300 total hours, and I'm now over 2,000 in 11 years. So I've been putting in a lot of flying. And the way that happened was when I finished fellowship, it was like July 1st. I was a poor fellow with no savings. And so I had to work, but I also wanted to take some time off. So I decided to do some locums. And the first assignment I had was in like the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania. And I took a train that I had to, change cars like 3 times. And it was like an all-day event to get there.
Wow.
And so I also wanted to get back into flying. And so I went to the local flight school and spoke to them. And I told them what I'd need. And I basically rented the plane and an instructor and would fly to different locations doing locums. The flight instructor would fly the plane back and then come back and pick me up when I was done with my assignment, which was like 3 or 4 days later. And I did that for a while. And then when I got comfortable flying solo again, I just kept doing that. And then I bought my first airplane. But before that, like I started my full-time job, and when you come out of fellowship, you're used to working, especially at shock trauma. It was like 120 hours a week. And then all of a sudden you go to your full-time job and you're working 40 hours a week, and you're not operating as much as you want to as a fresh grad. And I enjoyed flying to these places, and I felt appreciated, and the money was good. And so I kept doing locums on the side, usually about 3 days a month besides my full-time job. And that over time paid for my first airplane, which was a 4-seat, like Cirrus single engine piston. Mm-hmm. And I owned that for 3 years, and I did locums all across the eastern United States, Northeast, and like Florida, South Carolina, New York, Pennsylvania. And over the years, I just kept building hours. Like, flying 200 hours a year as a surgeon is unheard of, because if I worked locally, I don't think I'd be able to fly more than 30 hours a year. I just wouldn't have the time. Yeah. But because I used it as part of my like flying to work, I was able to fly a lot and wanted to get more and more complex. When my son was born, we now were a family of 4. So a family of 4 can't really fit in a 4-seat airplane. So we got a 6-seater that was pressurized. And then a year later, I realized that I needed something more reliable. So I got the same airplane, but with a turboprop, which is like a jet engine with a propeller. And then about 6 years later, after flying that, I just wanted the next challenge. I enjoyed flying it, but it's like a used car. Things start popping up that you got to take it to the mechanic so often and whatever. Yep. And I wanted to build multi-engine time, and the options for multi-engine are not that safe when you're talking about piston or even turboprop. But when you're talking jet, it's a lot safer. And I felt ready. And even though it's probably not the most economical thing, I figured I'm at a point in my flying that I do need the challenge, and I'm willing to spend more for fuel to get what I need for the experience. And so a year ago, I bought a Citation, and that also has helped grow a business out of it. So I was talking to my aviation lawyer actually about this, and I was telling him about like some business ideas that I had. And he said he sees this all the time. Like, people think that you buy an airplane for fun or for travel just to use for your business, but it's like a business multiplier. Like you actually expand your reach, and you go into businesses that you never thought you would otherwise. So it's really been a business tool.
Sure. Where it fits into the business now, or is this where we're talking about the ACEs company?
Correct. So
okay.
ACEs National Surgical Team was actually registered as a company, believe it or not, in 2015.
Wow.
So, and it really stemmed from that work that I did doing locums work. I just loved what I was doing, flying to different places and operating, and then flying out and providing medical care to facilities that would otherwise not, have somebody with my experience, like a shock trauma fellow, right? Like most of the fellows want to work at like level 1 trauma centers in big urban areas, but you have these facilities that don't get exposed to people who trained at shock trauma. But I was able to provide that. And I wanted to do that with my other fellows. Like initially I thought about it as a company for, people who trained like me to get around to different hospitals to cover trauma. And so I registered it as a company in 2015. But the truth is, again, like I said about the airplane, helped expand that. But also I surrounded myself with people who were able to create the business. So this is one of the lessons that I learned, is that although I had this great idea, you need to surround yourself with the right people to make it happen.
So true.
It was only like a year ago, a little over a year ago, that ACE has materialized into a direct surgical care model. So it's a little hard to explain, but I'll go through it. So this stems from part of my study of economics and healthcare economics in particular, where I really think that all problems in medicine currently, if you looked at the root causes, almost all of them stem from the fact that we're using health insurance improperly. The term is a misnomer. It's not really insurance. It's redistribution. Health insurance should be some sort of catastrophic care, but routine things should be paid for like you pay for anything else. And that would drive down the cost of healthcare. And so I'm a firm believer in that. And we've seen it in other areas of medicine where it's been done for many years, like plastic surgery. Quality is known and it's high, and cost is low, right, when there's competition.
Right.
And the same thing with LASIK surgery. And it's been shown to be in other things as well. Like there's a place that started this kind of model in 1997 called the Surgery Center of Oklahoma. You can go on their website and say you need a gallbladder surgery. You literally pick from the menu that you need a gallbladder surgery, and it'll tell you the all-in cash price for the surgery. You're not going to get 3 different bills for facility, anesthesia, and surgery. You're going to get one bill. You're going to pay ahead of time. There's no surprise billing, and it's cheaper, significantly cheaper than at the hospital. Now, if you have insurance, you may not be seeing that price, but the truth is you're overpaying at the end of the day between your premiums, your employer, what they put in, your deductible, right? Your out of pocket, all that stuff adds up. And at the end of the day, somebody is paying for the cost of care. And it's significantly more when you go to the hospital to get it done. And I'm not just saying hospital versus ambulatory surgery center. I'm saying insurance versus cash.
You bet.
So that's direct surgical care. Direct surgical care is one bundled price for cash paying customers. Now, the customers could be employers who have had enough with insurance and say, every year I'm paying X amount for the health premiums, and every year they go up 30%. And technically, you might as well burn that money because it doesn't go anywhere other than insurance companies' pockets. And so a lot of employers have decided that they would prefer to be self-funded. They do provide some sort of coverage for catastrophic care, right? But for routine things, they have their clients who are their employees shop around, or have, for primary care, there's direct primary care, concierge physicians who are actually not expensive. I think, again, a lot of people have this misperception that it's expensive, but it's actually not. And direct primary care has shown to be better and cheaper overall. And those same patients would seek out direct surgical care. So there's maybe a handful of facilities like ambulatory surgery centers across the United States that have this kind of pricing model. And that's what I thought I would need to do, is to build a center. But what I realized is that there's many existing ASCs that are not operating at capacity, and we could just utilize the existing ASCs if we can convince them that this is a better way. And the way I describe it is we've turned a hardware problem into a software problem. So The hardware problem is the brick and mortar, just building another ASC that's like cash based, which there are. But we're the software now. We're the software solution for any ASC. And we're the only ones that are doing that as a software solution. So we're in multiple states. We're in Wisconsin, South Carolina, and Connecticut currently. We started operations a couple months ago. We've seen our first patient two cohorts of patients that we operated on in general surgery. And we want to be a multi-specialty group. So ACE's national surgical team will offer general surgery, orthopedics, ENT, GYN to these same people, right? Like whether it's employers or employees of self-funded plans.
Wow. The whole bundle.
Yep. And we do it cheaper than what it would normally cost.
This has been fascinating. And I truly could sit here and talk to you about this, I think, for another couple of hours. I'm not sure we could hold the audience for that long. So I guess this might be a good time for us to segue into my favorite part of the program, and that's when I stop talking and give our guests an opportunity to speak on their own. And that's exactly what we're going to do right now. So here is Dr. Ronen Elefant to give us his personal prescriptions for success.
I'll probably keep it brief, although I have a lot to say about it. I can only say what worked for me, which I hope resonates with somebody. I've always been the type of person that doesn't take no for an answer. I'm very persistent, and I think that's very important to be successful. One thing that we didn't talk about was in my residency, I actually was a prelim for the first 2 years and then got a categorical spot for my third year. And part of it was luck, but the truth is, like, it was a lot of hard work to know, again, like going back to, I wanted to be a surgeon. I would do anything to be a surgeon. And there were a lot of roadblocks during that time that made me doubt, and people saying no, or you're not good enough, or you can't do it, or whatever. And I'm the kind of person that just puts my head down and will be relentless to get what I want to go for. And I'm very appreciative to the people that gave me the opportunity as a categorical spot. But I've used that mentality to go after a lot of things in my life, and it's worked every time. And you know, I think a big thing, I guess the message is, don't take no for an answer. Like, figure out how to do what you need to do. It might not be the way you think you're going to get to it, but if you just have the philosophy of don't take no for an answer, you'll come up with a solution that will work for you and for everybody to make it happen. Another thing that I thought about when formulating my prescription for success is stems from my pursuit of ACEs and the business. And I'm going to give some analogies that might have to do with my physics and engineering background, but hopefully, again, it'll make sense when I say it. I think the natural state is static, and is to stay where you're at and to, be comfortable and not do things and not be proactive about it. And in any endeavor I've ever taken, you just have to be persistent. I guess it ties into what I said before, but it's a little different in that, people look at successful people or people who, they admire and they think that it's luck and, they got to where they got to because of circumstance. And the truth is, what I'm learning, connecting with certain people, whether it's on social media, like LinkedIn, which was a great way for me to connect with other founders, is that it's not luck, and it's hard work to do whatever it is that you want to do. And it's those people that are persistent and keep at it every day, whether it's, working out and going in the gym, or building a business, or pursuing a surgical residency. You have to be persistent to sort of reach that spot that what I call the escape velocity, right? That you no longer feel that natural state that I talked about before, which is stasis, and that you constantly have this drive because you no longer are being pulled back by the natural state. And I would say that like I'm starting to feel that. ACEs, like I said, was a dream of mine back in 2015, and it took 10 years to make it happen. But I literally am using the logo for the company that I designed in the call room when I was year into my attending life. I had a dream, and it's now coming to fruition. And I'm so grateful, again, going kind of like tying it all in together. I'm so grateful for the opportunities that I have, by coming to the United States and making the dreams happen. But it's not without a lot of hard work. And if you're willing to put in the work, then you can find success. So that's my prescription for success.
That is profoundly wise, and not surprised to hear that kind of wisdom coming from you, considering our previous conversation. And I appreciate you being here with us today for the conversation in general, and especially for sharing your prescriptions for success. Before we go, I want to give you the opportunity to let our audience know exactly where they can find you. So if you have email addresses or personal appearances or anything else you'd like to share, now is the time.
Sure. So easiest to find me is on our website, acessurgical.com. You'll learn about the business, and there's like an intake form where you can reach me. My email is just my first name, RONEN, @acessurgical.com. I'd be very eager to hear from like-minded individuals, or anybody who the business idea resonates with, or who wants to be on the team. Like I mentioned LinkedIn. That's been a great platform. I've met so many amazing people. Just today I had multiple conversations with people that I met there, and that's another place that you can find me is on LinkedIn, but just my personal page.
Dr. Ronen Elefant, thank you so much for being with us today on Prescriptions for Success.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening today. If you enjoyed the show, you can help us reach more listeners by leaving a rating and a review, especially on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And if your app doesn't have that option, just leave us an email or a voicemail through SpeakPipe at www.mymdcoaches.com/podcast. You can also help by becoming a Patreon member. That link is in the show notes, and we hope you'll also follow our companion podcast, Life-Changing Moments with Dr. Dale Waxman. Special thanks to our producer, Craig Clausen, our promotions manager, Mariana Rodabaugh, and to Ryan Jones, who created and performs our theme music. And remember, be sure to fill your prescription for success with my next episode.